Hey everyone, Dave with the Spillproof podcast. Just want to let you know we are still going to be posting our podcast episodes up on our YouTube channel, but we're going to be doing it a little bit differently. Instead of putting the full episode on there, what we're going to do is put small snippets of it, maybe some of the highlights, things like that. And then if you like what you heard, you can check us out where our podcast can be found. So right now, our podcast can be found at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. So if you like what you heard, check us out, Spillproof Podcast. You can write to us at spillproofpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear your feedback or throw some stuff in the comments. Thanks, and thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Becky, and we're parents to two little kids. Parenting isn't always easy. There are ups and downs, good days and bad days. Days with way too much TV and days with lots of laughter. Moments where you just feel overwhelmed and moments where you've never felt more proud.
At the end of the day, parenting is super rewarding, but also super hard. This podcast is for all the parents out there who feel like they have no idea what they're doing, because we're right there with you. This is the Spillproof Podcast. Welcome back to the Spillproof Podcast. We're back. I'm Dave.
And I'm Becky. And it has been a while. We are here today to talk to you about our travel tips for traveling with little kids. Because we've traveled a couple times with our little kids, twice or a couple times with one child, and only once with two children. But we recently traveled again with Emily, our daughter.
Yes.
Because, she's born during a pandemic, so we didn't do much traveling. But we finally did a weekend away just to get out of our house because we, like everyone, had been stuck in it for 15 months.
Yep. I happened to find myself with a free weekend, which is something that doesn't normally happen. And we decided to take a long weekend.
Yeah. Literally. It was like Thursday at 3 p.m. You were like, I have Saturday off. We're doing this. We're going away for the weekend. And we booked a hotel that night. And then I freaked out because I was nervous about going out into society.
Yes.
Yeah. I freaked out.
There was a small panic attack.
Yes. I was like, I don't know if I can be out in public. Like, I know, like, we're vaccinated. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the population is vaccinated, but I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't know if I can go into a rest stop, which I could just put a mask on and feel better and it's fine. But
at the time, it seemed
I was
daunting.
Like, this feels impossible. We're going to stay in a hotel. Are you kidding me? We need to bring sheets. We need to bring sanitizer. So I had a major panic attack that Thursday night, but I think it was worth it.
It was total. It was a learning experience.
It was.
It was worth it.
It was worth it, but it was in the middle of us all getting sick. And so, like, right before we went, we were all fine. And then the morning before we left, it turned out that Owen had a fever.
A fairly high fever.
Yeah. But, sometimes you don't know.
Yeah, so our experience with this has been... Owen was how old when we went to Tennessee?
He was 5.5 months,
yeah.
But before that, we also took him on a short trip to Baltimore because one of my very good friends from college was getting married. So we didn't take him to the wedding. My parents also came up and stayed with him in the hotel. But at around 3.5 months, that was like our first little road trip.
And he slept the entire time. It was fantastic.
It was great.
It was a quiet...
It was great.
Quiet drive. He behaved.
Mm-hmm.
In the hotel, he was good. I feel like he slept good in the hotel too, which was fantastic.
He went down later than normal, but
he slept.
Yeah, he slept through the night.
Tennessee was a longer trip. Still the three of us.
Yeah, and we chose to
stop at a hotel.
Stop halfway. So it was like about a 12-hour drive total.
Yeah.
If you're traveling with kids, like Google Map it and then add a half hour for every hour.
Bottle feeding caused a huge delay in everything that we were doing.
Yeah, because we stopped to pump.
Or just feeding in general.
And bottle feed him. And then, I don't know, when they're that young, it's just hard because they either poop or they need to eat or you need to eat. And it's like every hour you're stopping.
It was frustrating because we would leave at whatever time we'd leave the hotel. And then within 45 minutes, we'd have to stop to feed a bottle.
Yeah, because by the time we got up, fed Owen his first bottle, got ourselves showered and the car packed, and then got Owen some breakfast and then got him in the car. It was like, okay, he needs to eat in an hour.
Yeah, it added a lot of time that we weren't expecting to need to have to kind of factor into the travel time. It added quite a bit of time. I mean, we made good time driving because he slept in the car most of the time, but the stopping, we didn't factor that in.
The second day was awful. The first day we made pretty good time. We stopped maybe every 2 hours. The second day we stopped every 45 minutes. It was insane.
It wasn't great.
It was insane. Anyways, we want to bring everyone our travel tips, our best practices, in our relatively limited experience of traveling with our children, but what we've learned, what we recommend, and
things we wish we could have done better.
Yeah.
And we have the ultimate test with 2 children coming up in August.
September.
Coming up in September, where we are going to go to the Outer Banks. Now, we live in upstate New York. It's
like 12 hours.
It's 12 hours.
Good time.
I've made it in 11 and a half. But that was just me.
So we'll give you our tips and tricks, and then we'll tell you what our game plan is for our
longest road trip yet.
Yeah. I'm honestly not looking forward to the road trip piece of this vacation.
But we can report back on how that actually ended up, and did our ideas really work, or were they epic failures and the whole thing was a bust? Yeah,
because I feel like pretty much 90% of parenting is thinking you know exactly what needs to happen and then doing that and then realizing that you should have done something completely different.
Hindsight's 2020, man.
Welcome to parenting.
Nobody knows what they're doing.
No, nobody knows. All right, so what is your number one tip or trick for traveling with little ones?
Snacks. Lots and lots of snacks.
Man, I didn't have food anywhere on my list, but that's so important. So important.
That was a big thing. I mean, we bought a van recently. If you're anywhere near the automotive business, you'll know selling cars is great. Buying them is a little expensive. I just happen to work at a car dealership, so we got a really good deal on it. Just like the housing market, it's all messed up. So we got a van, and one of the things that we did is it's got a huge front console in between the 2 seats, and we filled it all the way up with snacks. We still ran out. We still didn't have enough, but we just to the brim. And it really came in handy for like Emmy. We had teething biscuits and little crackers. And then Owen, we had animal crackers, Cheez-Its, packets, lots of packets. We also brought if you don't have one of these for a road trip, it's really a must, and that is a powered cooler. So it plugs into the cigarette lighter.
So great.
We actually brought milk with us. So Owen's on 1% milk, Emmy's on formula. So that obviously you just mix that, and all you need is some water. And we bought bottled water, but that didn't have to be cold. But the cooler was a really big deal because we brought what, a half gallon of milk.
Yeah, one of the smaller half gallons, but that was also clutch on our trip to Gatlinburg because I was pumping at the time, and knowing that my efforts, my blood, sweat, and tears of pumping this milk on our road trip was not going to go bad.
Not a drop was ever wasted.
No, it was for pumping moms out there. If you're going on vacation and you're driving, getting, what is this called? A battery powered, or no?
It's an electric cooler.
An electric cooler for the car, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Like you plug it into the car. It's essential for pumping moms because you're not going to waste a drop of that liquid gold. you can bring it with you. And then as long as you make sure that the hotel maybe you're staying in has a mini fridge, you're good to go. And
Which
you're
most
not
hotels
gonna
do these days.
But you're not going to waste a drop of that. And you pumping moms out there, you know that like there's that saying, don't cry over spilled milk. But if you spill breast milk, you're going to cry and maybe have a complete breakdown if you lose even an ounce of that, because it takes so much to pump it.
And the other thing I want to mention too is that we have at least one, if not two, very large pre-frozen cooler packs in there.
Yeah.
So when the car's off, when we're going into a store, when we're doing whatever, we keep that in there just to keep the cool kind of going. And honestly, when it was cold and frozen all the way to when we got to our it was just around 4-hour destination, still frozen, put it in the freezer, and on our way back home, it was still frozen.
Yeah.
We turned the cooler or the refrigerator in the hotel all the way up to whatever the coldest setting was, and it worked all the way home too.
Yeah, and if you're not sure, like if you're going somewhere you've never been before and you're not sure what rest stops are going to be along the way, like you might not know if there's going to be several fast food restaurants or like a general store type of place to get milk for your kids. And if your kids are younger, like obviously you want to give them milk, but it was nice to be able to bring the milk that we use at home with us and not have to worry about like, oh, we'll just like grab whatever we can find, if we can even find that at whatever rest stop we're stopping at. Because some rest stops are just bathrooms and vending machines.
Well, and it was actually a good thing that we did that too, because we weren't actually close to a grocery store or anything. The closest thing other than restaurants to where we were staying was Hess station, I think it was. It wasn't. It was a gas station or a BP. It just, we could have bought.
And it wasn't big.
No.
It wasn't huge.
Or clean.
No.
So it wasn't like we could just pop out and go get milk. Now, we were in Ohio. I'm sure if we Google mapped it, we could have found something within 5 miles. But it wasn't close to our hotel. And we specifically picked the hotel because it was close to the beach that we were going to.
So if you're driving, because we're on the car part, do a test run if you're able to. I totally get that some people are not able to do a test run because their work schedule is just insane. And to be honest, Dave and I would not have been able to do a test run for our upcoming vacation in September if he didn't have this random weekend off. So Dave typically works Saturdays, and he randomly had a Saturday off, which was awesome, which is why we decided to take this literally last-minute trip to Ohio to get away for a weekend because we had just been in our house for way too long. But I would recommend, if you're able to do a test run on the road trip, especially with little ones. It has helped us. So we mentioned before, we took Owen to Baltimore when he was about 3 months for a wedding. And then 2.5 months later, we drove 12 hours to Tennessee. So it kind of helped us gauge like what Owen was going to be like in the car, what the experience was going to be like, and helped us prep a little bit. And now this time, going with 2 kids, even doing literally a one-night trip away, has helped me prep for our week-long trip to the beach in September, because I know that if the kids are awake and not sleeping, they're going to need to stop every 3 hours. 3 hours is their limit. That's true. We found that out, that there's we could theoretically, on gas, snacks, bathroom breaks, have gone very, very, probably the whole way there. But they hit their limit of being strapped in their car seats very, very tight at about 3 hours. Yeah, because I never really thought about it, but obviously they're strapped in really tight to those car seats, right? Like when you go to birthing class and they tell you how to do a car seat, it's like you should be able to fit 2 fingers underneath their straps, and like that's how tight it needs to be. And that's for safety, right? Like, you need to make sure your kids are safe. But, like, as a human being, that's really tight. Like, you have zero wiggle room. And if you think, like, a normal or a normal strap, like, you do have that wiggle room. Kids don't have that wiggle room. So, like, I noticed that after 3 hours, they were fighting against the straps, and they literally gave themselves like red marks
Yeah,
because
there
they
was
were
little abrasions from it.
pushing against the straps. So they need time to get out of the car, to get out of those harnesses that keep them safe, but they need time to be out of that to like reset. So we learned that through our test run.
That's a good point. Now, one thing I wanted to add to that, do you think it's possible to overpack with kids?
That is the number one thing on my list. Don't overpack.
Thanks for listening to the snippet of this episode. Full episodes can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. As always, we love feedback. Throw it in the comments or write to us at spillproofpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.